ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتدي ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، خير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، كل محدثة بدعة، كل بدعة ضلالة، كل ضلالة في النار. Tonight, inshallah, we'll talk about Bab al-Ijara. And this section of the book Al-Umda for Imam Ibn Qudam al-Maqdisi rahimahullah is very important, because every one of us has to deal with it at different levels. Some people at constant levels, and sometimes temporary levels, but it's always present. And to know the rules and the ahkam of it is very important. To know what's halal and what's haram, what's permissible and what's not, when you establish this kind of contract, for you to be able to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this transaction. So it's very important that we discuss it, and we'll talk about it in a little more details than any other topic. And if you look, or if you think, if you remember, we spoke about the section of al-buyu', sales, explicitly, and we spoke about the section of al-qurud, loans, explicitly as well, because we all have to deal with that. And this is another section that we speak about it, and we will explain it inshallah, and we'll talk about more points than any other. That is Bab al-Ijara. يعني الإجارة, the word al-Ijara is common to be known or to be translated into rent, but it's more than that, because when we say rent, right away it comes either you're renting a place for work, you're renting a place to live in, or maybe you're renting a car. But it's really more wide than that. It also includes renting, يعني, if I could use the term, a person to do you a service. That is like employment, but that employment falls under this category because you're renting or you're paying for service. So Bab al-Ijara is the, if I can, better translation will be paying for service. And we will see what kind of services these are as we go on inshallah. يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى: لو شئت, in the story of Musa with al-Khadr, لو شئت لاتخذت عليه أجرا. بارك الله فيك, جزاك الله خير. لو شئت لاتخذت عليه أجرا. You all know the story of Musa alayhi salam with Khadr, and how he told him, you want to accompany me, no questions asked. And he agreed, but there is no patience for what you don't know about. Yani you can't, very difficult to deal with that. So when he saw him adjusting or fixing the wall, after the people of that village chased them out and refused to host them, Musa alayhi salam said, if you wish, you would have charged them for that. As if he's like, yani, asking, why would you do something like that after what the way they treated us? So the word used, ajra, and that is, yani, you could have charged them for service. Okay? So that is where, yani, linguistically the word is mentioned in the Quran. ومعناها في اصطلاح الفقهاء عقد على المنافع. It's a contract for services. Okay? It's a contract for services or of services. Yani the main purpose of the contract is you render a service, I'll pay you. So that's what we're doing. So once we understand that, okay, منافع, benefits. يعني عقد على المنافع And if you think all contracts are contracts for benefits, or most people will not get involved with. So there is a more general term or more specific term. عقد على منفعة مباحة من عين معينة أو موصوفة في الذمة مدة معلومة أو على عمل معلوم بعوض معلوم. So when we talk about الإجارة, we're talking about a contract that has pillars and contract that has conditions, but mainly it's a contract of rendering service. Okay, it's a contract of providing benefit, and we will give examples what that means. عقد على منفعة يعني what you are going into the contract because of is the benefit, not العين. يعني عقد على عين أو عقد على منفعة. الإجارة عقد على منفعة يعني what you're gonna pay for is the benefit, not the thing itself. For example, you rent a house. So the contract of rent is you're paying for the benefit of the house. That means to live in it. You're not renting, or you're not paying for the house itself. That will be what? That will be sale, bay'. Alright? So when we talk about al-ijara, we're talking about paying for the benefit of certain thing, of a person. You're not, for example, you hire someone to build you a house. That is ijara. But you are not paying to buy the person. You're paying to buy his service. So that is what we mean by benefit. عقد على المنافع. That is what it means, contract for benefits. Alright? The benefit of the thing, not the thing itself. Because the thing itself will be buyu' or selling and buying. The other part of the definition, عقد على منفعة مباحة. The next part of that definition, مباحة, يعني this benefit has to be permissible. Okay, so you cannot get involved in a contract of ijara to gain some benefit if the benefit itself is not permissible. Okay, يعني I want to rent this store. Renting a store is permissible, but let's say renting a bakery is permissible, but renting a nightclub, you're not buying the building, you're renting the business, for example, existing business. So the benefit of a nightclub is haram. So when we say mubaha, the benefit itself has to be permissible. على عين معينة. Now, it has to be the benefit of something. It has to be permissible, the benefit itself. على عين معينة. يعني this thing that you're renting the benefit or you're paying for its benefit, it has to be identified. Okay? Which is a house, a car, apartment, a store, whatever the situation. معينة أو موصوفة في الذمة. يعني إما he tells you this is what it is, and it's this house, and he show it to you, or he describes it to you. Okay? So either he tells you, let me show you whatever I'm gonna rent you, or let me describe it to you. It has 4 bedrooms, it has 2 bathrooms, it's located here, this and that, it's this color, it's this paint, it has carpet, it's not, all these stuff can be, that is موصوفة في الذمة. مدة معلومة. The service has to be to a certain amount of time. It has to be specified. I want to rent your apartment for a month. Okay? I want to benefit from your car for a month. I want to rent your car for 2 months. So it has to be known. أو, now that is renting something, renting specific thing. Renting a house, renting an apartment, renting a car, renting equipment. And it can be أو على عمل معلوم بعوض معلوم. Or it can be for a service. And that is when you hire someone to do your business. You hire someone, an employer. okay, employee in your business, that is, it falls under this contract. Or you hire an independent contractor to do you some service, that can fall under this contract. And all these things have regulations, as we will see inshallah. قال المؤلف رحمه الله هي عقد على المنافع. It's a contract for services or for benefits, and we already explained that as we see. وعقد الإجارة عقد لازم. We said contracts 3 types: عقد لازم, okay, عقد جائز, and عقد both لازم جائز. Okay, so the rent contract, يعني you sign a rental contract, this contract is لازم, يعني you bind, it's binding. يعني once you sign it, you cannot break it. Okay, you cannot get out of it, say, you know what, I changed my mind. Like after you sign and you leave, you cannot call next day, you know what, unless it's specified in the contract. But in general, it's mandatory. Okay, يعني it's binding. Sales, if they separate from the area where they conducted the sale, it becomes لازم as well. Okay, so some عقود لازمة, some عقود جائزة. العقد الجائز يعني either one of the, or either sides of the contract can break out whenever they want. And that is like which contract that either one can say, you know what, I don't want to proceed. وكالة, يعني if you give someone power of attorney, you can come and say, you know what, I cancel it. Or he can call you and say, you know what, I don't want to be responsible, I'm out of it. So that is جائز, يعني either one has the right to get out of it. العقود جائزة من وجه, لازمة من وجه. يعني some contracts, on one side of the contract it's binding, on the other side of the contract it's not. And that's which عقد like that. يعني for rent or the إجارة, the one who's renting and the one who's renting and the one who's renting his stuff and the one who's renting the stuff. And the owner of the apartment that he wants to rent and the one who's gonna come and rent the house or the apartment, they're both binding. Once they agree and once they sign, that's it, becomes binding. So which contract that one side has to abide, the other side doesn't? Usually it's a contract when it's done for someone to guarantee his benefits or guarantee his rights. That عقد like الرهن. الرهن or collateral, for example, the one, يعني let's say you wanna use my car, or you wanna buy it, and I'm gonna finance it for you. But I tell you I need رهن, I need a collateral. So once you pay me, or you wanna rent from me, you wanna borrow from me, so I tell you that's fine, I lend you the money you want, but you give me a collateral. يعني you put your house is a collateral. If you pay me the money, we're done, right? Now, the person who puts his house in collateral has no choice to leave whenever he wants, unless he pays so that contract is binding. Me asking for a guarantee, which is the collateral, I can say, you know what, I asked about you and I think you're trustworthy, I don't want a collateral after you take it. So one side can break out whenever he wants, the other side is binding. So عقد الإجارة, this contract we're talking about, الإجارة, is عقد لازم. يعني every party of the contract, it's binding to every party in the contract. وعليكم السلام. طيب, let's say someone, يعني a situation, someone wanted to rent an apartment. So he went and he rented the apartment, and the deal was for a year. Every month is $1,000 rental. Now, once he signed that contract, it becomes binding. So he cannot come after 2 months and say, I'm out. Him leaving after 2 months does not save him the rest of the contract. And he does not cancel the rest of the contract. He's still obligated to pay the rest of the $10,000. That is what it means to be lazim. If the contract between the renter and the rentee for a year, then that means a year. And even if you leave after a day, it's binding to you and obligated upon you to pay the rent for the whole year. Now, what is the outlet? How can he get out of this? And you went and you rented an apartment and things started happening, bad stuff to you. So you think it's because of the house, right? Some people think that way. So you said, you know what? I don't feel comfortable in it. Or you rented the house, then you didn't like. When you saw the apartment, you saw it at night. So, and you rented it, and then in the morning you were shocked what's about the neighborhood or whatever, the people around and all that, noise of the cars, all that. So you said, I'll try. After a month, you could not. Okay? So you want to leave. But we say you signed a contract for a year, and we said عقد الإجارة لازم, it's binding. So what is the solution for him? The other side can waive it. That's not an issue. But the other side doesn't want to waive. And he is being hard-headed that, you know what, you signed a year, it's a year. How can you avoid that? People, it's not easy to pay $10,000 just like that for nothing. After, let's say it's regular contract, you do not put a condition to bail out whenever you want, all this. Exactly. Sublease. Sublease. As we will see, you as a renter, you have the right to sublease the benefit, but with conditions, as we will talk about in a little bit. So that is a solution. All right? قال المؤلف رحمه الله لازم من الطرفين لا يملك أحدهم فسخها ولا تنفسخ بموته ولا جنونه. So now, since it's lazim, it's binding, no, either party doesn't have. You cannot bail out and say, you know what, I don't like the apartment, I'm leaving. And the guy who signed a year for you, the owner of the apartment, cannot come after 2 months and kick you out. It's binding to both. Then he said, rahimahullah, لا يملك أحد فسخها. As we said, ولا تنفسخ بموته. لا تنفسخ بموته let's say I have an apartment, I rented it to you for a year. You died after 2 months. Still the contract is binding. Unless you died and no one left behind, but your heirs, the people who are going to inherit you, have to respect this contract. So your death does not cancel the contract. Alright? Or the other way, I'm the owner of the house and I rented to you and I died. After 2 months, I rented for a year. After 2 months I died. So the people, my kids came and want to kick you out. Because you know what? We don't feel like keeping this house. We're going to sell it. They have no right. Okay? Or going crazy as well. So these are things, these are things that this contract, to show you how binding this contract, how binding it can be. قال المؤلف mixed up some papers. قال المؤلف وتنفسخ بتلف العين المعقود عليها أو انقطاع نفعه. Okay, this contract can become null with some things. For example, I rented you a car. Okay, the car went bad. It's not operative anymore. Cannot operate. So once the car cannot operate, that breaks the contract automatically. Then it's not binding to me, because what I rented, what I'm paying for, is the benefit. If the benefit cannot be achieved, okay, then it's not binding anymore. That's why وتنفسخ بتلف العين المعقود عليها أو انقطاع نفعه. Or the whole car got messed up, for example. Okay, the whole car got destroyed, not because of you, it got destroyed. يعني I rented a car for a month. I took it home. A storm hit. The tree next to the house fell on top of the car, destroyed it, totaled. That's it. That breaks the contract. It ends the contract, because first of all, it wasn't my negligence. I parked it the way I'm supposed to. The hurricane or the storm wasn't my fault. I didn't know. So since it's not my fault, and now I cannot benefit and gain what I paid for, then I'm not obligated with this contract anymore. Okay? Stuff like that. So that is the loss of the benefit or the destruction of what you rented itself. That's why they say العين أو النفع. قال المؤلف وللمستأجر فسخها بالعيب. يعني you rented an apartment, you rented a car, and it's supposed to be description 1, 2, 3. Then you found defect, major defect, that you cannot benefit the way you want from it because of this defect. Then you have the right to break the contract. Okay, you rented a house and you need lights in the house. It happens that at night lights go off. You need them at night. But because of the electricity in the area or whatever, the extension, whatever, FPL doesn't service well in that area. But the point, whatever it is, you cannot benefit from this place the way you expect, you anticipated, the way you were told, the way you were promised. Okay, you rented a machine to make you, let's say you have a restaurant, a machine that's going to make you ice cream. It's supposed to make ice cream all flavors. It only makes ice cream one flavor. Okay, that is a defect. It's supposed to, and it didn't. But you see the difference between the previous point. The previous point, when you got it, was okay, and then it broke. This broken from the beginning. Okay, so you have the right to break that contract. قال المؤلف قديما كان أو حادثة. شو يعني العيب, this defect, whether it was when you rented it or it happened after you rented it. قديم, it was there when you rented it, they didn't tell you about it, or maybe they didn't even know about it. They just, I need to rent a car, here is a car. But there's a big defect in the car, maybe the brakes don't work or something. That's it, you cannot use it. So you have the right to break that contract. Or you took the car and you drove regular, normal, without negligence, and something broke in the car. Now you cannot use it. That is as well, gives you the right to break the contract. هل تنفسخ الإجارة ببيعها? That's another issue. If I'm the rentee and I decide to sell that property, Okay, again, just to give example, you came, I have an apartment, you came, you want to rent it, I rented you my apartment for a year. 2 months later, I got a good deal to sell it. Huh? Someone approached me, I want to buy your apartment, this is the money I like. Can I, if I sell it to him, can he come and get you out of the apartment? He can. So if the thing that is being rented, okay, gets sold to someone else, he has no right to break that contract. I still have the right for that contract until it's up. Okay, so I rented you that apartment, and for a year, after 2 months, I decided to sell it. Then I cannot get you out, and I have to tell the buyer he has to respect the deal between you and him. And even legally, I think in this country, he doesn't have. He has to respect, right? The new owner has to respect the contract. Yeah. All right. So that is very important point. Now, if the buyer, the new buyer, didn't know about there's someone who's renting, يعني I sold you a building, business, whatever they call, office building, and I did not tell you that there is one client, his contract ends in 2 years, but you want to buy it to remodel it, and even if there is one person in there, you're not going to. So as a seller, I should tell you out of honesty, but I choose not to. So now after you bought it, you go in there and you realize there is one tenant that still has 2 years to go. If you didn't know as a buyer, you have the right to break the contract, because not informing you is a defect in the contract. Okay? Now someone will ask, what guarantees the right of the person who's renting? He can go after the seller. Okay? But if, for example, I'm buying a place to turn it into specific business, and I need the whole space, but there is one who's renting a corner, okay, of it, that prevents me from establishing this business that I paid for, I have the right as a new owner, since I didn't know, to break this contract, because it's preventing me from benefiting from my property, okay, without my choice. So that is very important. شروط صحة الإجارة. The conditions for any contract of إجارة to be valid. One, على نفع معلوم. The contract has to be agreed on specific described benefit. Okay, the benefit has to be described. يعني we just, okay, I'm gonna rent you an apartment. You cannot do that. Okay, I'm gonna rent you a place. You cannot do that. So this has the benefit itself, especially when we say benefit, especially when you hire someone to do your job. The benefit, what you're hiring him for, has to be specified for the contract to be valid. قال المؤلف رحمه الله ولا تصح إلا على نفع معلوم. That this contract only valid when the benefit is known. The benefit is known to everyone, that I'm paying you for this. You're gonna do this for me. You're gonna build a wall on the east side. You're gonna build an apartment with 2 rooms. I'm gonna rent an apartment from you located in this place with this number of bathroom and this, okay? So it has to be specified. قال وضبط ذلك بصفاتها. That also included in that part, and described, it has to be described as well. Then he gives you example, Ibn Qudama, he said كسكن الدار. Okay, يعني the benefit سكن الدار, I'm renting you this place to live in as a house. Okay, so that is يعني a description. this is mentioning the benefit itself. Or describing it, يعني you go to a tailor and you tell him, I want you to make me, here's the fabric, and I want you to make me a shirt, this color, with this number of buttons, with this pocket, this kind of color. This is description of benefit. That is ijara too. Okay, ijara. You are paying for the benefit. You're going to pay this tailor to tailor or to fabricate this shirt for you. الشرط الثاني ومعرفة أجرته. And you need to specify the rent. How much? So if you're renting an apartment, how much? If you're hiring someone to do you a service, how much? If you hire if you're going to pay a tailor to make you the shirt, how much? Now if you pay attention that when I said the tailor, I mentioned you take the fabric. What if you don't?
It's not up to ijara anymore.
What is it? We called it, we talked about it before. Even some of the ulama forbid this contract. Because you're paying for something you don't know of. It doesn't exist. You know, remember? It's called عقد استثناء. It's called عقد استثناء. And like, remember the Prophet ﷺ asked someone to make him the minbar. We gave that example. Okay? So some of the ulama said, you cannot buy something, and when you pay the tailor for something that he doesn't have yet, some of the ulama said that is buying something that doesn't exist, and that is not allowed. You know? So that's where, but that is where they said the right opinion is yes, it's permissible. And we said it's like close to ijara, but it's not exactly. That's why I said you take the fabric for him, then it becomes aqd ijara. But the other contract is also permissible. And you come to a carpenter and you tell him, I want you to make me a closet. Here is $500 down payment. That is fine. Okay? But some of the ulama said, because you're buying it, at the end you're going to buy it. You're going to own it. So they said you cannot buy something that doesn't exist. You can, on his part, he cannot sell you something that doesn't exist. Alright? And he's selling fish in the water. Huh? Alright? So it's very important. So الشرط الثاني معرفة الأجرة. How much? How much you're going to pay him, you have to know. ومعرفة قدر الأجرة. And the third opinion, or the third condition, is نفع العين يعني يكون مباح. What you're paying for, the service or the benefit, it has to be permissible benefit, as we have mentioned in the definition. شروط العين المؤجرة. قال المؤلف وإن وقعت على عين فلا بد من معرفتها. Now we are talking about renting a place, renting something, renting a car, renting a piece of equipment, renting an object for you to use, and then you take it back. Okay? So that is what they are talking about. So وإن وقعت على عين فلا بد من معرفتها. You have to know what you're renting. وإجارة العين تنقسم إلى قسمين. When you rent specific thing, it's divided into two types. إما إجارة إجارة على وقت أو إجارة على عمل. When you rent the benefit, you either rent it, you agree on a specific period length, you're renting it for a specific length, or you're renting for specific service. Okay? So for example, you rent a house. A house, when you rent it, you usually rent it for a specific time. When you hire someone, usually you hire someone for specific job. Okay? So those are the two types of ijarat. Or you're renting a car. When you rent a car, it can be for a time and it can be for a specific mission, a specific job you want to get done. Okay? I want a car that's gonna drive me from here to let's say you rent a truck to transport some stuff from here to there, from Miami to Orlando. So that is on the job. Okay? You're paying for the job. You're renting the car, or you're paying for the service for the job to get done. Alright? So all these things can be divided into that. قال ومن استأجر شيئا فله أن يقيم مقامه من يستوفيه بإجارته أو غيرها إذا كان مثله أو دونه ومن استأجر شيئا فإنه قد ملك منفعته. This is the subleasing thing. If you rent something and you pay for its benefit, then you have the right to rent it as well, because the benefit belongs to you now. You own the benefit that comes out of this thing you're renting. So since it belongs to you, you have the right to rent it to someone else. Okay? So if you rent an apartment in Islam, you have the right to sublease it. But the ulama put conditions. Because you don't rent a place that is designed very well to be, let's say, a nice restaurant, and you go rent it for someone who's going to use it, for someone who's a carpenter. You're going to destroy it. So when you sublease, it has to be either to the level of harm that you might cause, okay, or less. Again, يعني you rent an apartment. This apartment is designed for a family of husband, wife, and one kid, because there is a lot of handcrafts, mancrafts, whatever, a lot of design, a lot of expensive stuff in the apartment. You can go and rent it to someone who has a wife and a kid, but don't go and rent it to someone who has 10 kids, because the harm definitely gonna be more. Okay? You cannot rent it to, let's say, maybe people you know they're gonna destroy. So when you sublease, you have to sublease to certain service. The people who are gonna sublease it, they're gonna use it in the same fashion that you would have used it if you stayed in it, or less of the usage. Okay, that is very important. قال المؤلف فإن زرع ما هو أكثر منه ضررا أو خالف ضرره فعليه أجرة المثل. Now he gives you an example. I gave you the house, the apartment. He gives you more specific example. That you rented a piece of land, a farm. So you can plant something in it. So when he rented it to you, the owner, he gave you a specific amount of rent, the money based on you planting it, let's say wheat, قمح. So you took it, you signed the contract, you went and you said, you know what, I'm gonna plant it ذرة, corn. No, it's known for the farmers and people who have experience in this that corn really suck the nutrition and destroy the turba more than wheat. And if he would have known, if you would have told him you're gonna use it for corn, he would have charged you more, because when you leave, it's gonna cost him more to get the land the way it was. So what in this situation, you can stay in the land, but you have to pay the difference. You become responsible for the difference. Remember we said, you took it to plant wheat, and then you subleased it to someone who planted corn. Okay? We said you can sublease it, but the harm has to be more or less. Since corn will cause more harm to the ground, now you did not abide the condition of subleasing. So what is the solution? We say, okay, for example, this piece of land, if you would rent it to someone to plant wheat, the price, the market price, you usually charge him $2,000. But if you want to rent the same land for someone to plant corn, you're going to charge him $2,500. So if you end up subleasing this land, you have to pay the owner $500 because the harm is worth that. All right? So that is what they mean, that when you sublease, it has to be the same harm or less. وإن اكترى إلى موضع فجاوزه أو لحمل شيء فزاد عليه فعليه أجرة المثل للزائد وضمان العين إن تلفت. Okay. إذا اكترى يعني إذا أجر. الكراء the same thing as الإيجار. Okay. So he's saying you rented a car. Okay. You went and you said to the guy who has the car, listen, I'm gonna rent it because I need to drive it from here to Mexico. From here to Orlando. He said, okay, it's $20. $200. You went and you drove it to Tallahassee. All right? Tallahassee is further than Orlando or not?
Yes.
Okay. From here. Now you become obligated to pay the difference. We go back to him and say, okay, if you would have rented me this car from here to Tallahassee, how much you would have charged me? $250. Okay, I owe you $50. You become responsible. This is a trust. Okay? Then another scenario, أو لحمل شيء فزاد عليه فعليه أجرة المثل الزائد. Or you rented a truck, and the truck limit is 1,000 tons, for example. Is that a lie? 100 tons. يعني 100 elephant. 2 tons. الأمر أعجل من ذلك. 2 tons. Okay? You went and you used it 3 tons. Now, most probably the truck gonna get you there, and you're gonna. But you have to compensate, because when he rented you the car, the limit of the car is 2 tons. The agreement is the maximum you're gonna use it for is 2 tons. If you go and use it 3 tons, most probably you exhausted that truck. So you owe this owner. Look how just this religion is. The details and how much concerned about the human rights. Talk about human rights. Look at that, the wealth rights that Islam. Now listen to this. وَضَمَانْ الْعَيْنِ انْتَلَفَتْ. Now the person who rents is Amin, which means he doesn't guarantee anything. Any damage happens to what he's renting, he's not required to show proof if it goes bad, as long as it's not out of negligence or out of misuse. I rented a car, I used it, I drove it the right speed, I drove it in the right manner, in the right fashion, it broke. I'm not required to show you a proof that I was not the one who broke it, because I'm Amin. That is the rent. Amin. But if I rented your car, I took it home, I locked it, and I went to sleep. In the morning it was stolen. I do not guarantee, because I did what I'm supposed to do. But I rented the car, I left it open, I left the keys on, and someone stole it. Of course I will guarantee. So in this scenario, if I use the car more than what I was supposed to, I drove it to Tallahassee instead of my limit to Orlando, or I put 2.5 tons instead of 2 tons my limit, if it goes bad, I guarantee, because it's misuse. All right? It's misuse. قال وإن تلفت من غير تعد فلا ضمان عليه. Here he's saying, if I used it, but there was no negligence, there was no misuse, and it went bad, the car went bad, the house went bad, then I do not guarantee anything. So now, should I fix it? Am I responsible about fixing it?
In that scenario?
Yeah, no, in general.
No.
As long as there's no negligence and it goes bad, I don't guarantee. That's where it comes the idea of lease to own. Yani you're supposedly to be leasing. When you lease something, who's responsible about the repair?
The owner.
The owner. If you rent an apartment and the plumbing goes bad, who do you go fix it yourself, or you call someone? Do you call the owner? Call the owner. He's responsible. That's why where some of the ulama said lease to own is haram, because you are leasing, yet you're obligated to repair. You lease to own, but every damage happens in that house, it's your responsibility. So how is that a lease? It violates the conditions of a lease contract in Islam. So that's why we're saying, and we'll talk about that, because there's details when it comes to lease to own. Sometimes it's lease to own, two deals in one contract, and sometimes it's all lease. At the end becomes the right to own or not to own. Okay? So we'll inshallah when I get there. Anwa' al-ajir. Now here we talk about renting something. Now what's about hiring someone? Okay? When you hire someone to do a job, there are two types of people. إما أجير خاص أو أجير عام. الأجير الخاص يعني private employee. يعني he's only working for you. If you have a business, you have an office, you have a restaurant, you have whatever, and you have someone on salary, someone works in your office, that is أجير خاص, special يعني private employee. Okay? And usually you pay him weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever. This is الأجير الخاص. الأجير المشترك أو العام is someone you hire for a specific job, but many people benefit from. Many people can hire as well. Okay? يعني independent contractor, carpenter, a guy in a restaurant to cook you, a cook, all these things are mushtarak. Okay? So those people are mushtarak. Each of those have يعني its own rulings. One of the condition is for private employee, he is required to do the job by himself. يعني I pay you salary, you work in my office, I want you to fix this wall. يعني a handyman, I want you to fix that wall. He is obligated to fix it himself. But al-mushtarak, if you don't specify in the contract or in your dealing with him that I want you to fix that wall yourself because I heard you're a good guy, or you go to a mechanic mushtarak or khas? Mushtarak, general, يعني for everyone. Anyone can go to him unless you have your private mechanic. So you go to a mechanic, you hear he's يعني mahir and fannan and he's very good, يعني زي brother Afif, and you go to him and you say, I heard about you, fix this car. He has 10 mechanics working in his shop. If you tell him I want you to fix this car, then he can give it to anyone to fix it. But if you tell him I want you, Afif, to fix it, then he becomes obligated to fix it. Alright? So with the private employee, he has whatever task you tell him to do, he has to do it on his own, himself يعني. The general one or the العام المشترك, he can give it to anyone to do it unless you specify. Right? الأجير الخاص ولا ضمان على الأجير الذي يؤجر نفسه مدة بعينها. The private or the guy who works for you, the employee, your employee, doesn't guarantee anything. يعني for example, he's working on the hour, on the clock يعني, and you tell him, can you go and buy us lunch? So you give him the keys, or he goes in his car. If he's on the clock, let's say he takes the company car, he goes and he drives, he smashed the car, he did, يعني he was driving normal, he was driving the way he's supposed to, crashed. He doesn't guarantee. Okay? الأجير الخاص doesn't guarantee, as we said, as long as there is no negligence or misuse. What's about الأجير المشترك? Does he guarantee? The ulama have two different opinions. الحنفية والمالكية والحنابلة said he guarantees. Okay? They said he guarantees. If he causes any damage, he has to guarantee. يعني you take your clothes to dry cleaner. You have a nice tobe, a nice suit, a nice abaya, whatever. You take it to a dry cleaner. Dry cleaner, private or mushtarak? Mushtarak. So الشافعية والحنفية, they said that الحنفية المالكية الحنابلة, they said he doesn't guarantee. That means, or they said he guarantees. That means if he burns your clothes, okay, he has to pay for it, or he has to replace it. Okay. The other opinion said no, he doesn't. So in the other opinion, they equal the private with the general independent employee. And Allahu A'lam, this is the right opinion. Okay? The right opinion that neither one guarantees. Okay? Neither one guarantees unless there is negligence. And we both agree, and they both agree on either one of them, private employee or independent, they both guarantee if there is negligence on their part. But the other ones who have the different opinion about the independent, they said whether he's negligent or he wasn't, he has to guarantee. He burned your suit, he has to guarantee the suit. But the other opinion, which is Wallahu A'lam, yani closer to the truth, if he did his best, yani shrank. So where's the problem? The problem with him, he washed it the way he washed everything else, and it shrank. Now it's small. Okay? So he doesn't, you cannot ask him to guarantee. In the other opinion, they said yes, he does, but the right thing that he doesn't.
So, good question.
Yeah.
Now, in case if your employee did the negligence, and
Yeah.
in that event, you will be the one or your employee, since he's a
Like in the dry cleaner example, and if someone working in his...
common sense says I would be the owner.
Of course, of course.
That's the common sense.
Now if you now between me and you, yani I'm the suit owner, and you are the dry cleaner owner, I don't care who messed it up in your store. So because I hired you.
But between me,
But now between him, the owner, and the guy who works in him, that's a private employee. So if there is negligence on his employee, then he can ask for the compensation from the employee. But now, if
You said the private does not guarantee. If he's not...
no, does not guarantee as long as there is no negligence. يعني you work in dry cleaner. You don't own it, you work in it. You come in the morning to turn the let's say the pressure heat, whatever in there, on. It doesn't work. You don't guarantee, that's not your problem. Okay? But you come and you start playing with the fuse and you burn it. That is negligent, it's not of your business. That is where the difference is. Okay? But I cannot come, yani for example, I am a contractor and I hired a guy to work with me. He's my private employee and he works, I pay him salary. And I told him, fix this wall. Okay? He's supposed to make a hole in the wall so we can hang, let's say, a clock on it. So he's hammering, the wall collapsed. I cannot make him guarantee. Alright? And I do not guarantee to the guy who owned the wall because it was in negligence on my part. Alright? Okay.
to take it out of his salary, out of his negligence, it would be okay.
Yes, yes. If you prove that he was negligent.
Some cases are just
Straightforward. Okay? Yani someone who, delivery guy, works for you, delivery guy. And he has, the car, yani let's say you sell pizza, and you have a car for the store, the restaurant, and you give him the car to deliver. He goes and يعني in the limit, the speed limit is 40 and he's going 70. So he can catch the next delivery. And he crashes. Of course, that is negligence and misuse on his part. Alright? That is called ta'addi. Inshallah, we stop here and we continue next time. Since I brought it up, the rent to lease, there are two types of rent to lease, or lease to own. If the lease and the owning in the same contract, it's haram. If the contract of the lease and the contract to own fall in the same contract, the same صيغة يعني, it's haram. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, لا بيعتان في okay, لا عقدين في بيع. You cannot have two contracts in one sale, in one agreement. So lease is a independent contract, rent يعني, and buying is another contract. So lease to own يعني you're renting to buy. That's what it is. So you cannot rent and buy the same thing in the same contract. That's one reason. Second, when you lease to own the way it's going, you violate the conditions of renting of عقد الإجارة. Because we said in عقد الإجارة, who's responsible about the damage? The owner. And subhanallah, even in this country, that's what they do. When you rent an apartment, there's a problem with the sewage, there's a problem with the plumbing, there's a problem with the fridge. You call the owner and tell him, send someone to fix it. The one who owns the property is the one who's responsible about repairing it. Is the one who's responsible about paying, let's say, insurance if they have to. Since insurance is haram, but sometimes you have to. They are the ones. But when you lease to own, who's renting? Who's paying for the repair? You, the leasee. If the fridge breaks, do you call the bank or whoever you bought it from, send someone to fix the fridge? No, you fix it. Who pays the insurance? You do. Who pays the association fee? You do. Everything is you. But since I'm renting, I'm not responsible about all these things. So that's invalidate the contract. Now, how can I make this contract right? Easy. We say, Ya awlad al-halal, rent me the property. Now lease to own goes like if you're buying from the first day, right? After 30 years, you own it. Isn't that how it works? Forget what's in between. Everything between 90% gonna go toward the rent and 10% go toward your share of buying. That's how they work. So the first month you own 1%. The next year you're gonna own 2%. So you're gonna pay rent for only 98%. All this, so much confusion. But the bottom line is, if something goes bad and you own only 2% of the house, do you pay for 2% of the repair bill or you pay for the 100%? Exactly. So the point is, how to make this right is we say, Islamically, we say I'm going to sign a lease contract or a rent contract with you for 30 years. The same amount of money that I would pay if I go with the contract lease to own. Okay? But at the end of the contract, I have the right to buy this from you. I have the priority to buy this from you. And we can agree on a buying price, on a sale price for $1. That makes it halal. Or he will say, I want to rent you this apartment for 30 years, and at the end, if you go with 30 years with me, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to hiba, give it away. That's okay. But to create a contract where there is lease to own, and once you can't pay the lease, you lose everything, all that, that is not permissible. So you see, it's slight changes, and the same contract can turn it from haram to halal. So inshallah we stop here and we continue next time. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.